morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg and it is the 15th day of May 2024 and welcome to our show today. We have Liberty Essentials on this morning and we're going to go right into off the grid stuff with Karen and Ralph. So starting out with Liberty Essentials with Bill Mohr and Dr. David Kent might jump in little later too, but we'll see. So I'm curious to know what everybody's watching out there. So put it in the chat to see, to let me know what you're interested in and what you've been seeing in the news, because it's kind of been a crazy, almost like I feel like radio silence and or distraction. I posted an article this morning on Whitmer's unconstitutional tirade against chickens in the state. It came through the Midwesterner. And I really thought that the article was fairly misleading, but I'm going to bring everybody on here, the cast and crew of Brandenburg News Network on Wednesday. We have Karen the Riveter, Ralph the IT guy, and Bill Mohr, the amazing patriot and chairman of the U.S. Constitution or the U.S. Taxpayers Party, which is the Constitution Party in the state of Michigan. So, and I'm co-chief to that, so I'm first vice chair. So how's everybody doing this morning?
Good.
Good.
I'm doing good. I feel like I'm missing half my face. Can you all see that?
Yeah, no, see you. Except for your beard's gone.
Yeah, that it is. It was time for the great restart. So.
It's like trimming the split ends on your hair, right?
Yeah,
so do that once.
Like that.
Yeah,
I've never understood. I've always had short hair. I've never understood how people with long hair can stand having long hair. It drives me nuts if my hair is even just a little bit long.
Well, one of the things that I always tell a few of my friends, I come back. My background is in the old traditional Baptist churches, and they often have problems with men with long hair, referring to what Paul told the Corinthians, but referring also that we don't have any such custom here, and it's designed that men should not be looking as women or be mistaken for a woman. So I've got several friends with longer hair, especially out of the rock and roll era, and one of my jokes is I tell them, and those who have seen me before know that I had a mild beard. That's just what God intended me to look like, because it never grew within the last 8 years. It just stayed there. So when that topic would come up and people would start chastising somebody over that, I was like, listen, it's not that he's got long hair. It's just that they grow it on the wrong side of their face.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I got to show you guys something cool here, because before we jump into topics or anything, sometimes it's fun just to be friends and people, right? So I got to show you what I coined a new term. So we got our bees in yesterday, and this is my beatorium. So that's my new word for our hive area. This is the beatorium. So bees can recognize faces. So I've had bees before, so this is my new setup, and we've had bees before. So we put stickers on the hive so that they can actually identify their own hive by color and by that's why quite often people will paint the hives a little bit differently, or they'll mark it so that the bees know which hive to go into and which queen that they're actually working with. So kind of interesting, and we have anywhere between 12,000 and 20,000 bees in each hive. So today we put the feeders on the top, because you feed bees, and so today we put the feeders on the top. We just got them in and let several pissed off bees out of the hive last night. They were more bewildered than they were upset. So, bewildered, yes. So in the beatorium. So everybody's like, what's that? What's the deal with the front thing? Well, that's just a little table right now. That's a little outdoor table, so that if we're working on the hives and we need to set down smoke, or the smokers, or if we need to do anything with the hives, we can set it there. If we need
or hive box components, it could be useful for that too.
Yeah. So that's what we got. So there's our beatorium.
That is a necessary thing that I think our founding fathers and those that came before us understood, that raising of bees even if it's just to produce honey, let alone the other goodness that they do for the environment around us. If it's only just to get honey, that is an extremely important commodity within everything that we do. It's one of the few resources that we have that has just an indefinite shelf life in its purest form.
So we were out in the bee yard yesterday and got some honey. The guy that we were buying the bees from, he's like, you want some honeycomb? I'm like, oh yeah. So he like takes this knife and he gouges out some honey. And so I've got like this wad of honeycomb and honey on me with my bee suit out. So I'm like trying to figure out how to get my hand inside the bee suit without getting stung, because everybody else got stung except for me out there. And so I stuck it in here and I'm sitting there, like eating honeycomb and trying to close the bee suit around my hand while I'm marauding the honeycomb and the hives and such. Is pretty funny. So Lev says, hey Lev, hey Charlotte, how you guys doing? Lev says, why the stones around the hives? Well, let me tell you why the stones around the hive. When you have hives, and most people just set them on the ground, they're out there, but too close to marauders that come into the hives, in my opinion. Okay, you want to get them away from it so that you can keep like ants, mice, all that sort of thing from getting in your hives and such. And we don't have a bear problem here. Karen does, because she's north, but we don't have a bear problem here, but we've got other things that can cause problems. But the other thing is that in order to keep the weeds down, and you probably should understand that I'm a little bit, how do we say it? Obsessive in the planning department, and like to have things so that it's planned out for all sorts of failure. Well, if you're going to mow around or weed whack around the hives and such, the bees don't like the motion. They don't like the vibration of a mower or weed whacker or anything like that. It agitates them. And that translates in getting the crap stung out of you. Not a good plan. So we put the what we put down is we put crushed marble around it, because that changes. There's a word for it. What's the word? It changes the albedo of the surrounding material. And so what it does is it doesn't hold the heat in. So in the summertime, you kind of want to try to keep your hives a little bit cool, but you can't put anything over the top of them, because when they fly out, they go straight up like little rockets coming out of the hive, right? And so if you put them on the ground like that, and something that changes the heat transfer, it keeps your hives a little bit cool. We've got the frame around them so that at night, if we want to weed whip it a little bit to keep some of the weeds down, to keep like I don't know, things like ticks out of there, which keeps the possums out of there, which keeps everything else out of there. It's just a nice way to handle it. And we put it on cinder blocks so that in my normal, absolutely obsessively planning way, I'm thinking over winter I'll probably tie the hives down to the cinder blocks, just so that it keeps it more grounded. And then another thing I think we're going to do is we're going to put poles up on the corners, so that in the wintertime we can tarp it to keep them out of the wind. Now, you don't have to do this, but this is one of those things that I coddle my horses, I coddle bees, I coddle all these things to give them the best chance to survive. Commercial beekeepers that are doing this on a large scale, they don't care if they lose hives, because they're playing the numbers game. Where for me, my bees become my pets and my friends. So we want to keep them alive, and we want to probably grow. So I can probably go up to about 8 hives on this. So as you'll see it, I'll keep showing you pictures of when we add the deep boxes, and then the shallow boxes, which is where you get the honey out of. We won't take honey out of the brood boxes here, the big ones. That's for them to make more bees. And bees only live about 6 weeks. So and the dynamic of the hive is really kind of cool, and quite honestly, people can learn from them, because right now it is my opinion that the two-party system would absolutely watch America burn to the ground than to find reasons to work together. And they can't even get together within their own parties. They're fighting like cats and dogs. And it's like, you watch how a hive works, and it's kind of cool. It's so coordinated, and they work together for the good of the community. And that's not only how they survive, but it's how they thrive. It's amazing. Everybody has a role. They're happy with being in their role. They're not trying to take over. Actually, there's like the nurse bees. There's a hierarchy of bees going on there. And so the queen is not the head of the hive. She's only there to lay eggs. That's it. And then there's like a congress around her of older worker bees, and they decide whether she's doing a good job or not. And if she's not doing a good job, they kill her, and they start making a new queen to lay eggs, or they chase her away. And so, but the hive itself is a group. It's kind of like a republic, actually. They vote whether the queen's doing a good job or not. You can see if the queen's failing. You might have a whole bunch of drones that start hatching out, which are the male bees. And they have really no purpose except for one flight. The best man wins the breeding rights on the new queen. And the rest of them basically, sit on a sofa and drink beer the rest of their lives with a remote in their hands. And so, I mean, that's pretty much how it goes. There's only one winner in that race, and they only breed one time. The queen breeds one time for her entire life, and that gives her the ability to lay about. I gotta look out how many eggs they lay in a day, but it's a crazy amount of eggs that they'll lay in a day. So it's like a couple hundred eggs she lays in a day, or better.
Wow. There's a lot I didn't know about bees right there.
Yeah, and then when you take it out, it's very strategic to take the honey out. You don't just, somebody asked me a question about doing harvesting twice a year. No, you really should harvest kind of as you go. And you just take out a few frames at a time so that you don't disturb them. There's a respect there, and then the bees start liking you as not an invader, but as a co-worker in their what they're doing.
I saw a video the other day about I might have shared it with you, about a waterer where it's got like an overturned bottle, and then it has kind of like a hummingbird feeder. It's a self-watering system, but it has like these tiny rivulets so that they can get in there and they don't drown. There's no risk of them drowning. And your gravel made me think of that. Like, you could even take some gravel and put it in a dish. And if you kept the water, if you monitored it on a daily basis, you could keep enough water in there, shallow enough, that they could land on the rocks and sip the water out of it.
Well, there's actually a feeder we put on the top, and it's lined with beeswax and such. And then there's a grate on that. And so then we'll put in there, like, half of the bees in a hive don't fly. They stay right in the hive. So they're dependent on the others to actually feed them, the ones that, and they're scouts. They send out scouts on discovery flights and all that sort of thing. And then they come back and they do their little dance and tell the people in the hive, I'm going to call them people. They tell the people in the hive, where to find the food. And then the worker bees will go, and the young bees tend the babies, and as they get older, then they fly out and they become the flyers to go bring back pollen and nectar to the hive, right? So half the bees not flying, it's kind of a problem. So if you feed them sugar water, they have a way to go up there, and they can get water to drink, a little bit of sugar in it to give them some energy and such, and that helps the whole health of the hive. And then we start treating right away with an essential oil mixture to keep the predators out, or the invaders like mites and such out. And you put that right in their feeder water, and that kind of helps. And then after we harvest them, we'll treat for mites and that sort of thing. So there's kind of a complexity to it.
Beekeeping is one of the few things that does not require registration or licensing in the state of Michigan at a state level.
Yeah, and it has a forever kind of a shelf life. So there's all kinds of good things. There's nothing bad about bees. And if you're not afraid of them, they're like horses. Horses pick up when people say, "Oh, horses don't like me," they're afraid, or when they just don't like me. No, it's because you're afraid, and they pick up on the fact that you're afraid. So they're like, "Why are we supposed to be afraid? We're afraid of something. Why are we afraid of something?" And they're looking to you for clues. So if you go out there and you're like, "Hey, little buddies, how you doing?" and you be friends with the bees, and you're not afraid, they'll just kind of, I don't know, they'll just, I've picked them up without gloves on, the frames and such. They really don't want to sting you, as long as you're not pinching them or something. And the problem is if they do sting you, you get the death hormones on you, and then everybody gets mad because it's like, who'd you kill? You're a jerk, and then they'll come after you. So.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody knows that either, but honeybees can only sting once. Wasps can sting a bunch of times, but honeybees, once they sting you, it pretty much rips their back half off, and they die. And so they really, really don't want to sting you unless they feel that you are a worthy cause to die for.
Yeah, there's all these things. It's like, man, those guys are little patriots. I'm going to tell you, they function the way little patriots. They do everything good. There's nothing bad about honeybees. Nothing bad comes of it. And they actually care about each other more than their own lives and are willing to die for the cause.
Yeah, that is really unique. Everything they do is solely to protect their hive.
Yeah, it's to protect the community. They bring food in. They take care of each other. And it's like it really is there's your civics lesson for the day. So everybody out there that thinks that they're all right, lay down your self-righteousness, and I've got to be right. And if you offend me, I'm going to kill you. That's not the way bees work at all. They don't kill each other, and they don't work on being right. They just got too much to do to sit there and be engaged in stupid crap, fighting each other.
Yeah.
And they don't harm their own young.
No. Yeah, they don't. They're not abortionists.
Mm-hmm. Or pedophiles.
Or pedophiles. Yeah, they're not pedophiles or abortionists.
Yep, in their purest form.
So, what are we talking about today, boys and girls?
Well, I think you kind of led right up into that. And I didn't know until I looked it up while you were talking there that beekeeping is one of the few things that does not require registration or licensing in the state of Michigan. However, check with your local authorities, because they may try to mandate some sort of limits or regulate the number of colonies or prohibit beekeeping altogether in their local area. Or
just flip them off and hang it on the Constitution that you have the right. And then see what they do. Go after them.
That's where this was going.
Okay.
So the whole idea of licensing, I don't know if any of you have ever partaken with the Institute of Justice, but they actually put out a book. I forget the title of it, but it lists all of the licenses required to do certain things, mainly occupational, within the state of Michigan. And there are pages upon pages of licenses to be able to do things. When I first saw that years ago, I asked the question, what is a license? Where does that term come from? And looking it up, you find that a license is either permission or authority or liberty given to do or forbear any act, right? Somebody granting you the ability to do something. And more specifically, as a verb, it's to permit or grant, to permit by grant of authority, or to remove a legal restraint by a grant of permission. Which means something that is normally unlawful or illegal would require a license by some entity to, to be able to exercise that unlawful act, right? But the issue is the person issuing that authority to license an unlawful act must first have the authority to do that act.
And to restrict it.
Right, or to restrict it. And that's one of the things that that I looked a little bit deeper into. And I was curious who granted the state authority to license individuals, whether it be occupation or simple things like a driver's license, such like that. And this could be a show that goes on for weeks here. But if you look in our Michigan State Constitution, how many times do we actually find the authority to license? Does anybody know?
I'd say 0.
There is one.
Okay.
There is one, and that's Article 7, Section 30, and it deals only with township, city, or villages, right? Local municipalities, that they can license something, specifically more like a franchise or some infrastructure based on a certain company or corporation. They can license them to do something within the township for no longer than 30 years. That's the only spot where you find the authority of any government entity in the state of Michigan to be able to issue a license to do something, right? To do that which is normally unlawful. You look at simple things, fishing licenses, right? That's all regulated by the DNR, which, once again, does everybody on this show have the right to acquire their food? Do you have the right to go out and fish?
Absolutely.
Right? So if we have that right, where did we grant them the authority to regulate our right? Nobody in their right mind would give authority to somebody else to tell them whether or not they can exercise something that is normally lawful to do. But the state has taken it upon itself to regulate all these different aspects of life and then turn around and grant you permission to do what you could normally do. Okay?
And they're not good at it either. I mean, look at the moose problem that we have up in the UP. So we end up having a moose problem, and so these idiots decide to drop wolves in to control the moose population. Now we got a wolf population, so then they got to hire people to work for the state to kill the wolves. And I'm sitting here going, why didn't we just go right straight up the middle and say, hey, hunters, we need a bunch of people up here that want food for your families, and come out and take a few moose out and, use it for food. But no, they had to capture this. And that's the problem with all licensing. What it ends up being is little cartels in and of themselves. Every single industry has got a special interest cartel to be a barrier for entry and a way to do price fixing. And then they're captured regulatory industries go all the way along with it. So
there's also a bit of a distinction there, in that some of the stuff probably came about due to abuse of the common goods, such as Ice Mountain pumping unknown amounts of water basically out of all the aquifers in West Michigan. And I mean, it's the amount that they pull out is huge, and it's even hard telling really how much. Well, so they're drawing down a bunch of the aquifers. Now, does that mean that everyone needs to have a license to have a well for their own use? No, I don't think so. Not if it's on your own property, but you got to have some method of controlling that. And so some of that where it interacts with the public resources, where, if you start building a bottling plant on your property and sucking all the wells dry for 10 miles around you, that's going to start impacting a lot of people. But is that a justification for forcing the licensing on personal use?
Well, see, and this is where it goes into the basis of government, right? What the purpose of government is to restrain evil, right? To punish the wicked, the transgressors of the law. And we know that in Proverbs, it speaks of that for the transgressions of a land, many are the princes thereof. Right? We can take application from that and see that because of, as John Adams said, when our Constitution was made for a moral and religious people and wholly inadequate to the government of any other, when we have left that principle as a people, for our transgressions, the state steps in and sets up their princes or their agencies to monitor or regulate or license things because the people are not willing to properly govern themselves. In an instance like that, and I just put in a well a few years ago and dealt with the health department on a very large scale, and ended up chasing them off my property because I was going to have nothing to do with it. But in that regard, when somebody is affecting the life, liberty, or property of another individual, and it is in a negative way, then there is proper cause for suit against that individual. However, if that crime cannot be articulated or cannot be reasonably proven, then there is none, right? So the whole idea of licensing to be able for an individual to do what they will, whether it be well or pumping on their own property, I believe is a completely moot point if you cannot prove that it may cause damage, or even if there is an intent to damage or harm the property of another.
I tend to think that in cases like that, that's more of an application for the old idea of income tax, where the income tax is solely based on things that are a public resource that a private company is allowed to exploit, and that income tax is supposed to only be applied to the income derived from that public resource. But you'd have the same thing with fishing, for example, too. If you had you have a small lake, and we've had public funding to stock the lake with fish, and a commercial fishing operation comes into that lake and harvests all the fish out. Well, you've got another issue there where one company is monopolizing that.
Right, and that's the line between public and private. If an individual or a business wants to purchase their land or purchase a lake or purchase some sort of property to use for their individual purposes or their own individual business purposes, without the harm to another, there really can be nothing that can be done. However, when an individual or a business takes in public property or public resources, then that becomes a whole nother issue, because no individual has the right to take from everybody and make a profit on it, right? Whether that be like fishing in public waters, or even as simple as running a business and running a truck down a public road, right? I think we can all agree in a minute form that running vehicles down public roads will cause damage to the public roads. There's always maintenance to be upheld. So when somebody is making a profit for themselves by using a public utility like that or a public area, then they are required to pay their share to reimburse the public for the damages or harm that they've caused.
I've got a few gripes over these huge semis. When they went to the super semis and the super trailers, it used to be what, the 48-foot trailers were max, and now they're into the 62 and such. It's too heavy for our roads too, and that's some of the damages is the extra heavy loads that are going over it. I mean, there's all sorts of things that need to be changed here.
There's plenty of studies showing that almost all of the damage to roads is actually caused by truck traffic and not by private vehicles.
It's all the truck problems on that, but
not just private vehicles, but I should say smaller vehicles.
Well,
but The other thing too with that is that now we've got all these electric cars, which are extraordinarily heavy compared to regular gas cars or even diesel cars. The electric cars, the wheel weight is really, really heavy, and that's actually posed a problem for the tires on electric cars. They have to kind of be specially designed to carry the weight. But we've already
you went there, Ralph.
We've already proven that it's the road weight of a vehicle that causes the damage to roads.
Yeah, that's right. In Michigan, especially, we're one of these large aggregate states. There's, I think, in my opinion, right, and I can't prove this, but I think Michigan is probably the largest aggregate distributors that we have out here. So we constantly have trucks that are running 180,000 pounds, running trains of gravel across our roads. My father used to be a driver. He did that for decades and decades. So I was in it. I got to learn a lot of it and how things are done. And that's the reason why we have seasonal road restrictions in Michigan. And that falls right into that point, understanding that that to do that and to cause that damage, that they should have to pay their fair share to reimburse the public for that, because the public pays for the streets, right? We pay for the utilities. We pay for all the infrastructure to do that. The state has no money. They have no, they put in nothing for it.
They produce nothing too.
Yes. So it is the people, you and I and everybody here, that is paying for all of that. So when somebody damages it, they have to reimburse that. Okay.
And
that's pretty simple.
There's another issue there that I like to bring up, in that prior to the interstate system, we had a very robust, heavy transport system that was fully privately owned, the railroad system. And when we brought in the interstate system, we now have a public-funded system where all the maintenance is paid for by the public, and it really gives a strong financial disadvantage anymore to the privately built railroads. And you can go back and say, yeah, the railroads were granted a bunch of land with either land grants out west or in some cases eminent domain. But in a lot of those cases, it wasn't by either of those means. It was by private purchase of the land or by private purchase of easements. And the maintenance is also privately funded. And so we introduced, with the interstate system and with all of this road system, an enormous maintenance burden on the public to compete with something that was already functioning great in the private sector.
Yeah, and where did the authority come from to put in the interstates? Everybody should know this, and though it can be debated quite a bit, the federal government has no public interest to build an interstate system except for the ability under Article 1, Section 8 for establishing post offices and post roads. Roads going to and from to get mail or currency payments across safely, right?
Well, what about the all-encompassing interstate commerce clause?
Yeah, they make a noose for that. But anyway, the post roads have now become for public use, right? And not only that, but not only do we pay for such things, but a lot of them are going to tollways right now, right? In Michigan, we are really close to the 80-90 tollway. Over in Chicago, you've got 94. You've got the, what's the other one? Is it 355 or something that goes through there? These are all interstates, right, that were originally designed under the post roads that established more commerce between the states now, or has been used for that purpose. And then it's my understanding that especially 80-90 that crosses Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and farther, the toll there is actually owned by several private corporations that all have ties to a larger Chinese corporation out there.
That would make sense.
I'd like to
believe
see
you're
if anybody
correct.
can actually prove that. But
I believe you're correct in that it's at least private companies. I hadn't heard about their ownership.
Well, when you look back at it, that's how they have foreign ownership of all of our lands. They go through these big corporations and the hedge funds and the private equity funds and such to be able to fund it. So like when we think of Union Pacific Railroad, we think of, people go right straight to, that and some of the railroads around here in Warren Buffett and such. But reality is that UP is owned by BlackRock. So they'll go through that, and then of course that's a global investor. So that's non-American ownership, that's foreign ownership, and we should have a stop put to that immediately. That anything that is a large or a corporation period, they shouldn't be able to own land if there's a certain percentage that's not Americans, that you can tack it to an actual American on it. I mean, that should be a deciding factor right there, and they should be completely and utterly abolished.
Isn't there current laws about that or rules?
Should be, but nobody does anything with antitrust. But we don't have nobody's following the laws that are on the books. That we can't have foreign ownership of our land, but they sneak around it and they do it through corporate law, corporate structures and such.
I think you might be thinking of the I can't think of the name of it. It's like the Strategic Materials Act or something like that. But as far as I know, that they've only applied that to a very, very small number of companies that are mostly involved in the military industrial complex. It should really be not necessarily that, but some form of that idea should be applied with a much broader scope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just remember, for like Richard Branson or somebody wanted to buy an airlines or something, and he had to, someone from U.S. had to own 51%, and I don't know if it's strategic military stuff or just our infrastructure, but obviously no one's paying attention to any laws anymore as far as that goes.
Right. To your point, go back on the tax structure and how that, let's bring this back around to that, with the taxation for what you use rather than your gain or your trade for your time, wages and such, is a big differentiation there.
That's there is.
Like that.
What's that?
Isn't Florida kind of like that? They don't have income tax. They have, you're taxed on, toll booths all over the place. And
consumption. They have consumption taxes, and they shifted it around a little bit.
Yeah, a normal sales tax is similar to a tariff that we set up as in the federal government. There are very few ways that the federal government is to be funded, and the states should remain close to that as possible. They have no authority to tax the income of a person. In fact, any direct tax to a person should be removed. The government is the creature, right? We are the creators of the government. They are the creature. The creature has no ability to take from the creator. It's in violation of any common sense that anybody could remotely have. So when you see the state stepping in and saying, you owe us this, right, because you are being more profitable in one way or another, is something that is
unlawful.
That is unlawful. That is against the structure of American society. Even in the state of Michigan here, they don't have the authority to do so. And we can take this back around, right? All authority is granted by those who have it. The state, when it comes up with these ideas or comes up with these so-called laws, as our fathers would call them, pretended legislation, they derive this authority by statute, most of the time. They believe that they have an all-encompassing authority, and that depending on who is in office or who is in so-called power, that they can grant authority to themselves. Now, how does that work for you, David? How would it work for you if, for instance, you were to go out and tell the state police, hey, I am granting myself the authority to have a license to kill at any time I see fit?
You'd be
right?
obviously thrown in jail.
That doesn't work for you. But I've talked with numerous legislatures on this matter regarding specifically the state police. Where did they derive their authority from? Because the state police are granted the authority and the license to kill. They have the license to break the speed limit. They have the license of arrest. They have a license to kill, numerous other things. And I asked them, where did they derive this authority from? Because I can't find where the people delegated that authority in the Constitution. The answer I received from every single one was in this manner, that the legislature granted them the authority and can do so at will to make a new governing body with a license that didn't prior exist. Okay, so I asked them, who gave the legislative body that authority? Because I can't find it. Right? They assume authority. They usurp the power that we have granted them, and in turn, it makes them a tyrant. It makes them treasonous to the people that they are to serve, right?
Yeah.
And that you can apply that to almost every aspect you see coming out of government right now, is they don't understand where they derive their authority to do things.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, you know, I don't know the technical term for this or the legal term, but up north, a lot of lakefront homes have this easement next to them or in between them. So originally it was meant for people that didn't have lake access to put their boat in. But now, like, people have put docks in those areas. And if you don't kick them off your property, over time, it becomes their property to do what they want with it. There's a name for that.
It's squatters' rights for all practical purposes.
Yeah, kind of.
And a quit claim, I think.
Yeah, there's something, and it goes on up north. There's a lot of, you know, legal issues with this all the time. You got people on your side of your house, kind of in your backyard on the lake, you know, having parties and stuff, and they don't have a lake. They don't own your property, but now they do. It's kind of like all these laws or whatever, these usurped authorities, once you let them go by for a period of time, there's nothing we can do. They kind of move the goalpost on us, and there's nothing we can do after it's gone on for a period of time. And I personally feel like we can't fight all these things. You're never going to get rid of the state police the way we are now, because, you know, we've granted them the authority over years and years and years.
Well, actually, there's one path to get out of that, and that's the governor's seat. The governor's seat is the path to write this, and it's to write it very, very quickly. But that's really the only seat that can do it, because people right now, people are too fragmented to actually work together. Now, you could do it if we'd work together, but you can't get 5 people in a room.
Right.
Typically, that can get along and just decide what kind of cookies to bring.
Well, we've gotten the 4 out of 5 people in a room, but the voting is corrupt. You know, we've gotten enough people together to elect Donald Trump, who could change all this stuff and fix it, but the voting's rigged. So we're in a really bad situation.
Well, what I'm saying is that you can get people to do things like serve notices and do things that are in more of a de jure system, so that you're representing yourself and such. You actually supersede the judge in those situations. So, and I know quite a few people who are winning in those cases, which is great. But if everybody sat down and we said, if everybody stopped fighting and sat down and said, okay, we're all going to move at one as one, and we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a list, we could do that. But the problem is that you get to, even if you got to list 1 on the list, 2, 3, and 4 would start arguing because they want power, and the ego gets in the way instead of hitting the target, no matter whose idea was the best idea, which really is what needs to happen. But outside of that, if people could get together, that'd be the best way to do it. But the other way is a governor, if we had one governor across the United States that was willing to stand for anything, it would absolutely roll. And it's that governor's seat that can literally remove the entire government except the legislature. They can remove anyone. And so when you start seeing the lack of morals or the stuff like this that's going on, a governor can go in there and start nullifying laws that are repugnant to the Constitution, and also removing people. There's all kinds of things, and also defunding things. If they just stop funding this stuff and restructuring, there would be such an incredible change, and it would happen fast, because the people that commit treason, prosecute them. They're done. A governor has a little bit more leverage to do that.
Yeah.
So,
But how do we get a governor like that in? They purposely won't let him get in. I mean, I think the voting is like from top to bottom. Every voted seat is controlled.
Well, that's the problem that I've been speaking out against the last several years, David, and that's everybody's eyes are focused on the federal government, right? Mm-hmm. And you're not going to touch the federal government. It has served its purpose, and now it's gone and usurped its entire purpose. In my opinion, that needs to be abolished, as our founding fathers said, and we can go back and set up something similar like the Articles of Confederation, just how we interact from state to state, right? The states have forgotten their rightful authority under the 10th Amendment. They don't understand what authority they have. And every governor, and I'm saying every governor of these 50 states and even the territories outside of it, every one of them has no clue what they can and can't do. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while they get it right. But for the most part, they accept the mandates. They accept the edicts coming down from the federal government, whether it be the president's seat or Congress, or even the judicial system. They believe that they have the sole authority to declare what they do right or wrong, right? Constitutional or unconstitutional. However, even at the state level, when we start focusing solely on a governor's seat, I don't believe we can touch that either. For the same thing that you're saying, is that the elections they haven't been dealt with for so long that we're not going to be able to get in there and change something like that. That doesn't mean we shouldn't keep trying, because that option should always be available, right? That's the reason why we still have the established U.S. Taxpayers Party in Michigan, because that's still an avenue and it still needs to be done, and give the people the choice when we do finally start removing the corruption little by little. Give them the choice of somebody to replace them who has a constitutional background and understands what their authority and their role properly is. The only thing in that regard that I can see is in our local governments. When we start looking at our townships or our municipalities, our city wards, and maybe even at the county level, that's where we can control the election outcome, because our ballots are cast at the very local level. And in my township specifically, our township board, we are working on a way to now I haven't gotten them to remove the electronic machines, right? Because that's a county issue. They don't want to deal with it. However, I am getting them rethinking the process to say, well, even though we use this, and even though we can all agree that there is some amount of fraud, and they don't even know the level of which we're talking, but they agree that there is some amount of fraud and manipulation happening at a township level. They are working on, and I am pushing them in this regard this year, to develop a process to prove the result. And that is namely to recount the ballots and prove the ballots at a local level. That means verifying what the ballot is, what the outcome is, verifying who cast it based on their electoral status in the township, not the state. And doing it that way, you can prove the results at a local level. The moment you electronically transfer them to the county or state is a whole nother matter. But if every township would prove their own ballots, The moment that changes at a county or state level, the townships have the duty, not the responsibility, but the duty to stand up and say, no, what you have just done is committed fraud, and we're going to go after you in a full regard. Now, my question is, when you mention the presidency or the governor's seat and such, what people have forgotten is who has the license, right, or who has the authority to enforce the law.
We the people, the militia.
To enforce an existing law?
To
The
enforce
militia.
the law.
We the people.
Specifically worded.
The sheriff
Nope.
in the county.
Nope. The sheriff does not have that duty in our government.
The people, we the people. It's the militia.
The sheriff is a record keeper for all practical purposes. They are to record crimes, take testimonies,
Investigate.
and to investigate, and they can hold an individual, right? That's the sheriff's proper role.
They can call a grand jury though too, can't they, Bill? I mean, they can call a grand jury, so it's the you know, that's the proper process actually.
Yeah, for investigating a crime. Yep.
Yes.
But it is actually the militia in both our federal and state constitution that is granted the authority to enforce the law. And the militia just being in its simple form, the people, right? We are the militia, whether or not people want to agree with it or not. Even though we call the National Guard the militia, and even the National Guard itself calls itself the militia, they are derived under,
too.
yeah, they are. The majority of them are Article 10. Yeah, I've got friends and family that are in there, and I get quite a few updates that are very interesting. I'll word it at that. But they are derived from a statutory law. They have no constitutional authority to exist, right? Because federally, no state is able to have a standing army. That was one of the greatest fears of our founders, because that's what the British would do to them in their colonies, is they would force a standing army to terrorize the people. So they didn't want that, and they specifically forbid it to have a standing army. Well, that's exactly what the National Guard is a standing army currently. What it should be is properly the people, the militia, properly armed, trained, disciplined, and the governor is actually the one that is required, it is their duty to establish captains, lieutenants, and sergeants within those ranks, right? So I think it's North Carolina or South Carolina was the last one that I knew of when they had a record of birth recorded with their county clerk. On their birth record, it actually stated their militia
number.
What am I thinking of? Their number, basically where in the state they were required to perform militia duties, right? That's one of the last few ones that I've seen. And I don't know if any of the states do that anymore.
Well, and I tell you, we need to go back to Switzerland and the way that Switzerland, because our militias was based on, the whole militia system was based on what Switzerland has going on. And they require people to not only be armed, but to participate in training. And if you don't train, you have to pay like kind of a penalty tax or a fine for making your neighbors do it, which I think is a really great idea, because everybody has to participate. And on to what you're saying, I've been working, actually, David, something else that I've been working on is to be able to remove the machines at a township level. So we've got the paperwork near completion. And there's several people in this area, because our township supervisor, the whole township, broke 4 election laws. And so this week on Monday, I was taping Stephanie Lambert and Stephanie Scott's their arraignment. And Scott Ogney, who's a friend of mine, is down there, and he actually has some going on with one of the sheriffs that watched the Locust Standy investigation that we've been working on. And they're actually thinking about taking up their figuring out how to take up the cause on this, because if that's the case, this thing will ripple across the state. And all we needed was one good sheriff that could actually take up the cause on this. But as individuals, we need to go to the townships with these communications and stand up for the townships and require them on a local level. And honestly, we don't have to do the whole state. It's like the U.S. Taxpayers Party. It's the disruptor. It is the the small number of people that can absolutely turn this nation around. It's never been the majority, never. But the minority of it's the minorities that have the ability to change it. So as the U.S. Taxpayers Party is a minor party, we have the ability to go in and be the great disruptor and throw the rock in the road. So what we need to do is, to focus on these offices. The shortest way is a governor. You got a good governor, and they can write everything quick. But in order to get a good governor in, we really kind of need to start at a township level to remove the machines at a township level and require them to do hand count, paper ballots, camera over the table, tally on 3 different stations or 4, and call it in. Don't transmit electronically, because the clerks are all saying, I didn't break the law. It's like, well, yeah, but the transmission of it to get all the way to the tally, that's where they're compromising it, is behind the scenes with the electronic transmission.
Well, that's one of the places. And you've had Linda Rance on here before too, who has done a whole bunch of work too in her area, and has gotten people, various townships around her, to switch back to doing hand counting, and she's been able to prove that it's actually cheaper.
It's cheaper. Cause of America is where it comes from. So she works with Cause of America, or Cause for America, and that's all about the paper ballot. So I've had Linda on here, but what we need to do is, honestly, she's got the process of how to do it once you have them agree to get rid of the machines. But what we have to do is we have to go after them and hold them accountable to say, I don't care if you think you're doing everything right. I can prove, 17 ways of Taiwan here, how they've cheated the election. This is how they're cheating it. You have to stand at your local level and ensure that all of us have our votes counted. And you can do that at a local level. In fact, I can bring up the paperwork that I'm working on right now, and we'll see if we can hang on a minute, and I'll see if I can bring that up. And show you what we're working on right now.
So, David, as an example to that, to kind of prove the point of what I was saying there, do you remember back in 2020, during the tyrannical lockdowns that our government tried to place on the people, one of those that said no was Ken the Barber out of, I think he's out of Owasso area or something. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm not familiar with that name. Okay,
well, he was one of the few that stood up and said, nope, I'm not having it. You're not doing it. You can just go fly a kite, right? So he kept just his simple barbershop open. That's all he did.
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with that.
Yep. And the governor actually sent her little brown shirts, the state police, over there to arrest Ken. And when that was found out by a few of the people, they all banded together as a militia, in its literal term, armed with everything. And they stood at the door and told the state police, you are not coming in here, right? And after a short standoff, what happened? The state police returned and said, we're not going after this guy. And why is that? Is because the government only knows force. Either the government forces something on the people, or the people force the government to do what's right. It doesn't understand, the government does not understand somebody asking them to do something, right? Our servant should understand that. Yeah. But in its proper sense, the only thing that can change is by force, whether that be in action or protest, or in its literal sense, telling the government you're not going to do this, and if you do, you will be met with the same deadly force you seek to put on us, right? And that's its literal sense. But it doesn't have to go that far if we can help it. And that's why we have to get started at the local level. We need people involved. I like to ask people how many people can name all of their township representatives, right? Their supervisors, trustees, treasurer, clerk,
No
deputy
idea.
clerk,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And it's very saddening actually to see how many people cannot. But that's where it matters.
So we're getting the group together here in Byron Township, and that's what I want to do, because they denied my FOIA for information and admitted to destroying election records, which is breaking 4 different laws on the behest of the Board of Elections, Jonathan Brader, who we have the letter where he told them to get rid of it. And so they followed his rules. That's why that Stephanie Scott case is so important, because she refused to follow the rules, which were unlawful. She was given an unlawful order by the Board of Elections, and she decided not to comply. She's a hero because she didn't follow it. So anyhow, here's our letter that John Tater and I have been working on together, because he does these sorts of cases all the time. So I said, let's work on this together. So we went through this, addressing him as a public functionary, talking about the misprision of treason, rebellion and insurrection, seditious conspiracy, and such, advocating the overthrow of the government. We named off Dominion, ES&S, and Heart machines have not been authorized by the Michigan Constitution. We've got other case law in here and such, and having to tell them that they have to what the action we're looking for is, in order to return sanity to our election process, is the duty of each and every public functionary to return to one-day election, remove ballot harvesting, ballot drop boxes, and above all, remove the Dominion, ES&S, Heart, and any other electronic assist machines, and return to paper ballots to ensure integrity and the sacred honor of voting. It shall also be necessary for all citizens to register to vote and prove United States citizenship. Absolutely no other days will be permitted to vote, and absolutely no allowance for non-citizens to vote under any circumstances. Voting is right allowed only to citizens of the United States. All public functionaries shall swear an oath of office, and in violation of such oath will be fined of $1 million and 10 years in prison. Such legislation shall be implemented through the legislative process. So we're talking about holding them accountable on a local level, telling them what they must do. And also, if they fail to do it, that there's going to be countless lawsuits and criminal prosecutions against the public functionaries involved in the greatest scam perpetrated upon the public.
Oh, so, Donna, you need to work with John to remove the U.S. citizenship. Because not a single person in America can prove they are a U.S. citizen.
Thank you.
There has never been such a thing. We are only
domiciled individual. I get that, but
so another thing with that too is looking back in history a little bit. Look into the history of IBM sometime, because they got a real interesting history of starting out with, well, not starting out, but very early on doing the tabulating machines, and before they got into computers, doing the tabulating machines right around the time that they were also involved in selling a bunch of their machines to the Nazis during World War II.
I did not know that.
The corporations are so bad. AT&T is absolutely complicit in the control of information and such. Just like the first, I was at a meeting and watched where the president of AT&T was there, and watched him sit there and spin their bull crap out there on how great AT&T is. But they took over the first responders network, and they were also involved in the first strike of spying on America by having it cross the Canadian border. And that's where they picked up all of the information, was in Canada. And then they just had to cross the border, bring it back into the United States. And voila, they were justified on the spy network of spying on every single American through that network.
Yeah, the whole FirstNet thing is something that everybody should be aware of.
And if you don't comply, they're going to shut those services off. You won't get a anyone to reply if we keep going in the direction, because they'll only allocate that to their good and faithful little minions out there that have bought into capitulation to their attack on America.
So another thing too, that's a history thing that I thought I'd bring up based on Bill talking about how the federal government has overstepped their authority and needs to be brought back more in line with the Articles of Confederation. That brought that brought to mind that something else that people might want to look into is what they were trying to accomplish with the Constitution of the Confederacy during the Civil War. Because, it was all over slavery, right? That's what everybody always says. But, the Confederacy in their Constitution took steps to work toward abolishing slavery about 3 years before the 13th Amendment. So, and they've got some interesting changes that they made to the Confederate Constitution over what was in where things that they saw the U.S. federal government overstepping the U.S. Constitution, and where they tried to put a stop to some of that. And there's a very strong argument to be said that the Civil War was actually fought over basically federalism versus anti-federalism.
There you go. That's it. Most people don't know that slavery was actually abolished in 1908 in our nation. No, I'm sorry, not 1908, 1808.
I was wondering, like, what did I miss here?
Yeah,
we all missed it.
1808 was the first time that was actually abolished. So to have the Civil War come in after that and to try to change the history books to say that that's what it was about is a complete waste of time to even talk about it, because people have been so indoctrinated to believe it. It's incredible the responses you get when you try to open that book back up.
It's right there in historical documents, though, if anyone cares to read them.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. That was a federal takeover of the state's authority. That was what it was premised on, in the guise of freeing slavery. Now, while we're on that topic, you got to think, everybody has to understand that slavery is not abolished. It's still in full effect today. Does everybody understand that?
Absolutely.
Yep, for prisoners and outside the U.S., but it's still legal for prisoners in the U.S.
Well, the state claims that they have the authority for that. Even in our Constitution, it says that no involuntary servitude, right, listed under slavery in our Constitution, no involuntary servitude is allowed in the state except for prisoners, right? So those that are taken in for crimes, the state now believes that those prisoners owe them payment for the crime, and that's not the case. It never was the case, and that goes back to the prison system being nothing more than a money-making corporation. But the prisoner of a crime is to provide restitution to the victim, not to the state. The state is only the governing entity to make sure that happens, to establish justice, right? Because it's justice that guards our liberty, according to what's written on the Supreme Court. That is their purpose. But now the state believes that they have the all-encompassing authority that when a crime is committed, the perpetrator of the crime owes the state something. And unless they damage some public property that the state is required by authority of the people to maintain, a prisoner owes no allegiance or not no allegiance, but they owe no restitution to the state itself. They can only authorize restitution to an individual.
Have you ever looked into how many of our common commercial goods derive from the slave labor provisions of punishment? Basically, where the components of stuff you buy in the store, very common stuff, is made by prison labor for almost nothing wages.
Well, like license plates. and
Yeah.
such. I mean,
Oh,
there's
not just
all-
that. There's commercial goods where companies themselves are profiting from this. Not even the state. It's private companies profiting from this system.
Do you have a link on that?
Let me see if I can find it a minute.
Yeah,
Yep.
put it in private chat and I'll throw it up there.
And then the
So-
state takes its tax on top of that in sales.
Yeah.
It's a
So
money-making machine.
So here we go. I'm gonna while Ralph is looking that up, I wanted to show you this. Posted this morning, and want to show our wonderful tyrannical non-governor queen, as it were,
Jeez.
Whitmer. Can't stand that woman. Issues an executive order over avian influenza. So here you go. Once again, she doesn't have the authority. I thought this article was a little bit misleading, though there were some good facts in it, because it talked about what they were saying is commercially required for doing commercial farming of chickens, right? But the whole thing is nonsense, because she doesn't have the right to do an executive order over anything that's not a government employee or a function of the government. So she crossed the line in here, and this is what people miss. She crossed the line into getting to public or private entities and issuing an order. She had no more ability to issue the order over the state for masks or anything else than she does over this. And furthermore, it's the songbirds that allegedly are spreading it. I've got a different idea, because they were throwing the dead birds in the dump, and the dump, think about this, where the carrion is going to pick it up and absolutely spread it if it's a thing. And then there's a turkey farm that I know of that the FDA was there for 2 days. And all I can say is, are they injecting these birds with things? Are they spreading it that way? I have no faith that they're doing anything other than nefarious activities. So is this bird flu spreading because they're literally putting it in the birds? I wouldn't say that that's out of the realm of possibility.
Is it even real?
I don't know if it's even real. Or what are they doing? Is it just an excuse to attack our food supply? But if you got the FDA hanging out in a turkey farm for 2 days, and in the same area they're throwing all dead birds in the dump, they're not incinerating it, how can this possibly be other than spreading it, the purpose? They should be incinerating it if they're trying to stop it. Instead, they're giving it wings to fly.
It's another COVID. Right around elections. Same type of thing.
Well, the government will always create a crisis to play the problem solvers to do what they need to do, right? I'm trying to think of the quote that was given.
That's a great point. Like the FBI,
There will always be a crisis. If the government wants to get outside of its scope of authority, they always play the people's emotions. And lately it's been health, right? Over the last several decades. It's been health where the government steps in and says, oh, well, for your health, we need to do this. Yeah. But it was the same cry that the Third Reich in Nazi Germany put out. They would go around and mandate the people to do certain things. And they'd go up to them and basically they'd just say, für Sicherheit, right? It's for your safety. Who doesn't want safety? I'm telling you, I don't want safety if it costs me my liberty. I'd rather have a little bit of danger in life.
Yeah, right? They switch from terrorism. They switch from terrorism to health. Yep. And it's always some disaster that they just keep chipping away at your rights. Constantly.
Here you go. You brought up McDonald's.
Yeah, prison labor in the United States is referred to as insourcing under the work opportunity tax credit. Well, look what they're doing with the illegals that are coming in. They fired in the food industry. They fired a whole bunch of actual Americans and replaced them with illegals, which the United States government is paying their wages. And so it's like they got free labor by the corporations do by hiring the illegals to replace Americans. So employers receive a tax credit of $2,400 for every work release inmate they employ as required for risky target groups. With all this, the inmates make about 90 cents to $4 a day. Here are some of the biggest corporations. We have McDonald's, uses inmates to produce frozen food, inmates for beef, for patties. They also eat processed bread, milk, and chicken products. Wendy's, identified as relying on prison labor to reduce its cost of operation. Inmates also process beef for patties. Is it beef? I want to know what we're eating here because I don't have any trust in any of these. Walmart, company uses inmates for manufacturing processes. The company hires inmates to clean products of UPC barcodes so the products can be resold. Star Yuckies. I hate Starbucks coffee, just so everybody knows. I've been
Toxic.
It's toxic, and literally I got to see the raw beans that they process. And if you're ever in Kona, it's kind of an interesting thing. Kona, Hawaii. Kona coffee is great and it's real expensive, but the direct comparison between the beans, you can only pick coffee cherries for like 48 hours when they're ripe. Well, what Starbucks does is they come in and they pick every single thing in the field, whether they're ripe, rancid, or under ripe, and they over roast it to kill the taste. So you're eating crap coffee with Starbucks, and those of us that are coffee addicted can taste the difference. Okay, so hire. Let's see. They subcontractor Signature Packaging Solutions hired Washington State prisoners to package holiday coffees. 90 cents a day. People, think about this. Sprint, inmates provide telecommunication services. Inmates are used in call center. Verizon, telecommunication services. Victoria's Secret, which most models are guys. Hate to tell you this, but it's surprise, surprise. Their models are by and large males. So the company uses inmates to cut production costs. In South Carolina, female inmates were used to sew products. Also, inmates reportedly have been used to replace made in tags with made in USA tags. It's disgusting. Truth in labeling there, guys. Got a problem. Victoria's Secret. Wrong. Bad. Fidelity Investments. 401ks and other investments held by Fidelity. In some cases, some of your money invested in Fidelity used for prison labor and other operations related to the prison industrial complex. Investment firm funds the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, which has created laws authorizing increasing the use of inmates in manufacturing. J.C. Penney's sell jeans made by inmates in Tennessee prisons. Airlines and Avis.
So I could see a good argument for using inmates if they can't pay a restitution to pay a restitution by working for the government, cleaning up the highways or whatever. But for private companies, that's just such a scam. It's just so bad. But I feel like there's so many of these things. Like we could pull up articles every day of, of the abuse of the people. We could pull up 10 things every day. It's just, how do we change it? It just boils down to me, election machines.
Yeah.
Like, we can't get anything done. They keep moving the goalposts on us, and you can't change it until we can get a hold of our government.
Well, they can keep moving the goalpost in their little game, but what they don't understand, and also what the people fail to understand yet, is that the game is controlled by us. Right?
I don't know about that. Theoretically, it should be, but when your judicial branch and it will not stand up for us, I mean, there's obviously bad stuff going on to people, and we can't.
Well, I see the problem here is that we do control the game if we start stepping up and having our voices heard. And so, if people are not writing and communicating with the representatives, that's the first step right there, is communicating with them and letting them hear you. If they can just go hide somewhere and never see the people that they're supposed to be serving, they can get away with all kinds of things. But human beings are fickle. If they actually have to face people, and if there are good people there that have been threatened and they know they've got a population behind them, maybe they have the guts to stand up, because I think a lot of the people have been actually threatened. So here we go. International Paper, Johnson & Johnson, BF Corporation, Sears Holding.
And you're right on one thing, David. When it's prisoners doing work like this, that's perfectly acceptable if they cannot pay their restitution. However, every cent of that should go to either one, paying for their stay at our public utilities known at the prison system, and two, paying to the individual the restitution that is owed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
Nothing else should go to the state or benefit the state or another company in that regard.
Right.
But if the company does want to take the risk and hire a prisoner or a criminal for that purpose, so be it. You accept that risk and you are responsible for that individual.
And some of the profit that corporation makes from that person needs to go towards paying restitution for whatever crime they did to whatever person or people they did it too.
Yep.
But
Well, then you get into the discussion of was there a crime? How many of these people are in prison because there was no crime? There is no restitution to be made because there was no crime in the first place.
yeah,
Now, technically, the people owe the prisoner because we failed to do our due diligence to ensure that they were not kidnapped and imprisoned for no reason whatsoever.
Oh,
yeah,
so like J6, you mean, Karen?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, where there is no victim, there cannot be a crime, and the state is not allowed to be a victim. So when you
Okay.
look at it in that regard, I would say a very small percentage of those that are in the prison system have actually committed a crime.
very small or
They may have had civil infractions based on some regulatory system that some local municipality has put in place. But that is not a crime against an individual's life, liberty, or property.
Check this one out. Prison industrial complex, mapping private sector players. Ooh,
So that one's got just a ton of data in their spreadsheet. But you have to go up to the top there, I think, and go to data, and then you have to fill out a form. Keep going. It's way up at the top.
okay.
There you go. Prison industry data. Nope. There you go.
This guy down here. Here we go.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a crew to get started working this morning, so it's been a pleasure, but I'm going to have to jump off today.
What, Bill? You work? You're not sucking off the system?
No, and in fact, I can tell you to do getting on this show every morning cost me about $300 out of my own pocket. But it's what we have to do, right?
Yeah.
I'm not bragging about that. I don't have $300 to throw around, but it's where there's a gap, we have to fill it, and where there has to be a voice, it needs to be spoken by somebody. Who better than the person that is thinking about it?
Absolutely. Right? And all of us are the same. You know, people have to understand that this truly is a patriot channel because no one here gets paid. This is all volunteer. And, you know, so it's like it's really a group of people and friends who really believe in standing for this nation and putting our time, our treasure, and our sacred honor out there and saying, you know, we're not going to back down. And you know what? I'm much more optimistic about the future than most people are. I'm very optimistic because throughout history, they've tried to kill the human spirit. They've tried to remove God from everything. And God will let it go just so far. And he's like, all right, everybody out of the pool. It's time. The game's done. Right. Once it gets to the point. So our faith doesn't even rest in what we think we know or the path that we think we're going to take. We keep taking them. You don't sit still for certain. But God has a way of opening things up and giving them to us when we need them. Not way ahead of time because we'll screw it up every time. So he's got to kind of let us have it when the timing's right and when he's ready, and then all glory does go to God for the win. Something that I find really interesting is in the Bible when it talks about green pastures. There's no green pastures there, guys. This is not like walking into a field in Michigan or Wisconsin where we have lots of rain. It is not like that. The green pastures where the shepherd knew where the grass would green up in the morning on the right side of the mountain, take the flocks there, and we're talking stubble. We're talking what grows on with the morning's dew. By noon, it was dead again, okay? The green pastures were in a barren wasteland, not belly deep hay, in a barren wasteland, what he gave us for that day. And that's all we need. And you know what? I have complete faith that God is faithful to all of us. And we can stand in the knowledge that he is the one that's faithful and his purposes will be accomplished. And he never abandons his children. I'm a child of God. I know you guys are too. So, I mean, we claim it, that we're children of God. He will not abandon us nor will he forsake us, nor will he forsake anyone that reaches out to him. So we stand in the fact that he's going to right this with or without their permission. And when things start going poorly for them, we're going to sit back like moms and dads and say, so how's that working for you? The cheating, the murdering, the lack of loyalty and all that. And try not to be too smug about it. But, honestly, when you see people that have attacked the United States, there's got to be accountability for this. And they can't get away from what they've done by their murdering, their stealing, their money laundering, their coercion, their intimidation, their threats, all of this in the goal to harm human beings. Those are God's kids. You're in trouble. It's not going to end well. And so I'm going to put a plea for everyone who's done the wrong thing. Come forward, make it right, stand on the right side, reach out to God. He'll forgive you, but you're going to have to turn around, and it's going to have to be a sincere and abrupt turnaround, because you don't mock God. He already knows everything you've done. He's not like in the dark waiting to find out things that you want to hide. He already knows all of it. Best plan is to reach out to God and say, need some help here. Screwed things up colossally. I need a savior. And the only one that can save anyone is the Son of God, Jesus Christ, who died to pay the penalty for our sins. And, once you say you're sorry, he'll come alongside you and he'll help you. But until that time, he's sitting back watching it going, how's that working for you? Probably not well. So there you go. The battle is the Lord's.
Yep. Humans have a way of screwing things up when we get involved. And we think that we can come up with new ideas to correct old problems. And there is no new idea or new strategy that's going to correct these problems that we face, because they're not new problems. These are things we've dealt with the entire time America's been around, and for generations and millennial before that. It's always been the same problem in different form. And if we want to correct the problem, we need to get back to the old solutions. And to do that, we have to be willing to do the things that they used to do back then if we want the results that they used to get.
Nothing is new under the sun.
There's a pervasive attitude, too, of a lot of people of, well, we're modern people, we're smarter, we're more advanced. We've moved past all of that stuff. Look back at history, guys. There were people were brilliant. If anything, I think we've gotten dumber over time.
We're definitely dumber.
Hey, Bill.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so I'm going to give you an easy way out, Bill. Bye. Thanks for being on today.
Nice meeting you.
We're going to go to the off the grid thing. So if you want to stand and see my cool intro here, I got to make a couple of adjustments on it but I'll play that. We're going to go to off the grid for a minute. So be right back. So stay put where you guys are. Hey guys, and we're back. Welcome back to Off the Grid. And here's our wonderful, faithful panel of trying to get the state of Michigan ready for the impending collapse that's going to happen. I pray to God that it happens, because we need to watch Babylon fall. So off we go, guys. What are we going to talk about today? So this is kind of what we do every day. This is what we do every day, boys and girls. We go off the grid and we talk about all sorts of things. So what do you want to talk about, guys?
Well, something I thought about when I was watching the intro there is, has anyone ever looked into wood gasifier technology? That's pretty cool. It's an older technology for, you can run, I'm going to say most things that run on gasoline, you can run them on the methanol that you can cook out of wood by basically heating wood up until it boils off the volatiles. And you can run most gasoline engines off of that.
Yeah.
You're getting into one of those areas here, Ralph, where you're going to disappear and we're all going to wonder who suicided you, because anytime people talk about free energy and or stuff like that, they magically disappear.
Yeah.
It's not quite free, but
it's not free, and it's an old technology. I mean, they used to make these units. They were real popular for a while in Europe for the Model A, and that era of technology. They outfitted some of the Model Ts with them as well, but especially in Europe, with if I remember right, during World War I, when there was a whole lot of fuel scarcity, that was not uncommon for people to run their cars off of basically just wood chips.
Yeah. And what is it? I mean, I think it works, excuse me, through the exhaust of burning the wood, the smoke, and you can channel that into any type of gasoline powered machine or engine.
Yeah. You know what? There's a guy that I know of that recently made a lawnmower that runs on that. Let me see if I can find the video on that.
There you go. So
pretty complicated.
There's a guy that had that working with the exhaust, similar to what you're talking about. I don't remember. I was watching. I was kind of looking into different power mechanisms, and he was rechanneling the exhaust from a gas engine and burning up all of the exhaust. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
There you go. Video by Colin Furs on how he did that.
Okay, hang on.
So, and I'm going to preface this by saying this guy is extraordinarily energetic, and he does an awful lot of stuff that would pretty much, I'm pretty sure, make OSHA lose their minds. So a lot of this stuff is maybe don't try this at home kind of stuff. However, this is one technology that is really pretty cool, not terribly dangerous, and it's an old technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a guy that was doing
gasification.
Okay, no, different guy.
We're gonna make some wood gas. Now this is an old technology. Basically, if you burn wood in a high temperature, low oxygen environment, it will give off a gas. Now it's kind of a little bit like charcoaling. So I kind of done this as a little brief experiment just to see if it does work. If you fill this pot up in here with wood, cap it off, have a little pipe come off, fill the outside of this with fire, then you will get a smoke come off it, but within that smoke is gas. And if you light it with a blowtorch, you can kind of see a bit of a glimmer of a flame. We're going to make a better one because I want to run an engine on this, so we need to clean that smoke up because it's full of all sorts of impurities. So we get rid of them, you can run engines off it. I've got this whole lawnmower. We're basically going to make a gasifier, set it on the top, so we can have wood burning, the gas can go in, and we can be mowing our lawn. And we don't need any fuel station or electricity. No, we've got me wood gasified mower. Well, new first page. More about that at the end of the video. Right, let's get on with it. Time for one of those Colin Furs build montages.
Well, if you want to see just kind of how it works, you can skip a little further ahead in the video. He goes through all of how he builds this and everything. And this is something that pretty much anybody could do this because it's an old technology and it's not terribly complicated.
Well, we got to be careful because we'll get a YouTube strike on this too if we don't take pauses once in a while because Nazi YouTube is not like Brandenburg News Network. They don't believe in sharing knowledge. So anyhow. Go
But
back.
yeah, if you skip towards the end, you can see kind of how the unit actually works.
Okay, let's go through this. Tell me when to stop, Ralph.
Oh, that's there. He's kind of explaining it a little bit, and then if you go, you see the little bump in the graph there over toward the right. That's going to be him demonstrating it.
Okay, let's check out what he does here.
This is more like it. Nearly stays lit.
And a lot of it just made with plumbing parts.
Alas, it actually works. I can finally cut my lawn on the power of wood. The lawnmower is set way too high. It's glitching onto the air. Now, once it's running, it doesn't sound any different and it doesn't smell any.
Too fun. Okay, so let me see if I can post this to this link here, and then we'll put this on my Telegram.
He's made like a rideable hovercraft kind of thing. Was one of the things he had on his shirt there. That is insanely dangerous because it was like he set it up like a motorcycle where the front and back wheel areas were basically just gigantic rotating fans, and then had to balance on it. So he does a lot of stuff that's, a little on the dangerous side, but he's also got some really cool stuff on there.
Here, I'll put the links in my Telegram channel, and so everybody can see what I'm getting better at this every day, guys. It's like maybe I'm getting better for it. Maybe I'm delusional. I don't know, but we'll put these links on my Telegram channel at Brandenburg #4 MI. And accomplished. Bam. So what else are we going to talk about today? What's on everybody's mind?
I think bird flu.
And the chicken revolution.
I'm pretty sure most birds flew.
Dad joke there. So yeah, I think we really need to continue on thinking about things like the bees and such, and how we're going to provide for our communities. Because honestly, it goes back. It's the same thing as politics. If we think about how to decentralize and go back to communities taking care of each other, but that requires people to gain skills in all of these areas. So, and everybody's got skills, different skills here, there, and everywhere. Whether you're a doctor, or you keep bees, or you do chickens, or you can make fibers, or you raise sheep, or you do, the holistic, the herbal medicine, or food production. I mean, there's all these things that we can all do. And there's so much in life that we can cut out of our lives and simplify things that we think we need, but we don't need them at all.
How are you coming on your research for cows and the correct type of milk?
Okay, so that's a great thing. So I need a little help on this in Michigan here, because I need to find some micro A2 cows. So there's micros and there's minis. And I really want to get some micro cows because they're about maximum of 41 inches tall at the shoulder. So they're small. So they're not going to be, they don't have to eat as much, but they still put milk production out. So that's what I'm looking for they're micro cows. I'd love to have jerseys that produce A2 milk, which is a protein class in the state of Michigan, that I can go buy a couple of micro cows. So I found some out in Idaho, and people say that there are some here on websites and such. And I reached out to several different people, but I'm having like almost next to no luck. So I got to work on this a little bit.
I don't know much about cows.
Okay, so Ralph, you got any resources? Let's see what we can find online here. See if you guys can help. What would you like to see me put in? So I can show you what I found.
Unfortunately, I don't know enough about cows really to know even really where to look.
Okay, I'm gonna do Michigan.
Well, if you were on Facebook, I would suggest finding a Facebook group, because I'm sure that would tap you right into a social network forum.
Yeah.
So I need some help. So somebody on Facebook, which I'm not. Somebody said I've been calling people in the groups on Facebook. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not me. I don't do Facebook. So somebody, when I was running, somebody would post once in a while, or I'd post on there once in a while. I don't know how to do Messenger because I don't do it. I'm on everything else, but I don't like Facebook because I can't say what I want to say. So I've kind of like gotten away from that too much. I know everybody else communicates with it, but I suck at it. So if you see me pop up and talk to you on Facebook, it's not likely to be me. So anyhow, here we've got Blue Mill jerseys and A2A2 Milk, Foster Farm, and where are they? East Texas. So let's see if Ralph came up with something here. Oh, okay. Here's another one.
So you want A2, not A1, right?
Yeah, A2 is the non-allergenic. Okay, let's see. We got raising miniature livestock here. Because I think I can get a goat milker to milk them. Here you go, miniature livestock. It doesn't have here we go. Here's a book. Let's see what Ralph gave me on. So anybody that knows anyone out there who has A2 producing mini cows, please get on and let me know where to find them. Very cool. And then we've got Flannery Keepsake Farm. Okay. I'm on a mission, guys. I got my bees set up, so now I need some cows. These are so cute, too. When you look at them, it's like it's crazy how cute these things are.
Well, I think I discovered that I may be lactose intolerant or whatever sensitivity or something, too, because my body's been kind of directing a lot of decision making this year. What I didn't put out there was I was having some indications with my heart, and I lowered some stress level quite a bit by reducing certain activities, and mainly people that I was connected with. The stress level went down, and we were really focused on our health here. So that went away until I started eating certain foods, and then I noticed that my heart was telling my body something's still amiss. So now I'm trying to hone in on what it is. And Ralph, might have to talk to you about food testing because I'm curious about this. I think it may be a direction for me to go.
Okay, so it's cute. They're cute.
Between the heart and the gut, I'm getting indicators that I don't know if it's a new thing or I'm just more aware now that there are certain foods that are being bothersome to me.
So what I'm more familiar with is getting a near immediate inflammatory response from things from an allergic reaction,
right.
higher up, and so for that you can get there's a blood test for it where they do a whole panel of antibody tests, and I don't remember what company does that. But my doctor had me do that, and that was a great way to go. Lactose intolerance, usually I think that's lower in the gut, and I'm not sure how to. I haven't had to deal with that, so I'm not sure what the medical tests for that are.
I may be able to help. I know a doctor. I know a doctor. So the test is called a RAST test. It's a radio immunoassay test. They can test for different food allergies. But what kind of symptoms are we talking about? gut symptoms?
One is the heart palpitation is one, and the other is gut. I didn't used to have pain, like cramping in my gut,
Yeah.
but that's kind of a newer thing.
So do you?
I think last year that happened, and I think I figured out that it was cashews. Now, was it roasted cashews or raw cashews, or because I was mixing them at the time? But I suspected that that's what the cause was, and now I'm thinking it might be more than one nut, or it might be processing of particular nuts.
So usually
So,
allergies to nuts and things like that are more of a systemic reaction, like in your body, usually with hives,
right.
things like that. I heard you mention milk, and a lot of people are obviously allergic to the lactose, which is the sugar.
Yeah, it's not milk though. It's
just
cheese or yogurt. I'm not typically drinking milk.
It's cheese and yogurt.
Those are my favorites.
And they cause problems or no?
Well, that's what I'm guessing at. Right now I'm dairy free.
Oh.
And I'm going to see how that changes things, because it will probably clear up a number of symptoms.
Yeah,
I know I have gluten intolerance too. That one, that's from past experience too. I know that for me, it can influence the gut, but it can really come out in muscle pains, particular places.
I got to put a disclaimer on here. Look at what's on here. Attention, all kids are sold. Okay, guys, that's not like children. What is that, Karen? What are kids?
It is a scam.
Small men and women.
No, it's all the kids will be goats.
Oh, I can't really see the screen. Okay,
person. You're a goat person. It says attention, all kids are sold. That's goats. They sell goats there. It's not children. I was waiting for somebody to lose their mind. Look at Brandenburg put something up that's on selling kids. Oh no! So.
Well,
here you go.
Allergies. The first anyone with food allergies should start by keeping a really detailed diary of what they're eating and see if they can narrow it down. Sometimes it's more difficult to do, but I think you're doing the right thing, Karen, by just eliminating the stuff that you think it is and see if you get better over a period of time, and then you could slowly add things on and see if they cause a problem.
Doing an exclusionary diet worked pretty good for me, because I found out very quickly that I'm not allergic to rice and I'm not allergic to potatoes.
Yeah.
So you clear up your diet for a couple of days, get all the inflammation to go down, just eating things that you're not allergic to.
Right.
And then introduce one thing at a time, add in tomatoes, see if you have a problem with tomatoes. If you don't have a problem with tomatoes, great. Take the tomatoes out, and then you can pretty much start right away with the next thing of, okay, try broccoli, that kind of thing, or whatever you're trying to test against. And within a couple of weeks, you can build up a pretty good idea of what you have problems with. At least from an allergy perspective. I mean, for me, it's pretty easy because I can, depending on how bad I'm allergic to something, I get pretty strong symptoms sometimes within seconds of eating something that I shouldn't. So for me, the reaction's pretty clear, and I can go through an elimination round on that pretty quick. But if it's something that's more lower, like an intestinal issue, then you're going to have to give it time to work through to figure out there. And like Dr. David said, keep a very, very accurate log of everything you put in your mouth.
Yeah.
Not just foods, but drink too.
Well, I also a few years ago I was doing a different diet, and I was doing a 28-day fast metabolism diet, which does work, but it's really unpleasant for me because I didn't like dropping all of my favorite foods at one time. But it was very effective. But one of the things I discovered by trying a new recipe at that time was I have a contact allergy to butternut squash. Because I was chopping pieces of it for this soup, and the skin on my hands got tight, and it kind of turned orange. I washed my hands pretty regularly through that process, though, so I think I was able to limit it, but my skin was still really tight and kind of dry. And I was like, I wonder if I'm having a reaction to something. So I looked it up. Butternut squash can have that effect on people to the point that it will cause the skin to crack. And it can be really, really bad. So I was glad I was washing it often as I was. And I haven't wanted to touch butternut squash since. And supposedly you can eat it if it's cooked. But it's different to handle. And since then, I haven't been interested in eating it either.
Okay, I think I found my source for micro cows here. Miniature jerseys. There's miniature jersey herd book, and then there's the association. So there you go. This netted me a good resource to try to find somebody in Michigan that has micro jerseys.
So I was finding some other stuff too about a lot of people that look toward A2 micros.
Yeah.
A lot of them are encountering another breed called Dexters, which if you can find, apparently there's kind of like two schools of thought on Dexters, and that some of them are doing selective breeding to try and make them even smaller. But if you can find the heritage breeds, they're already in a micro classification, and they're naturally tending toward A2.
Oh my goodness, they're so cute.
Yes.
I'm so excited. Okay, so we don't have any select a state. Michigan, you're falling down. I guess it's going to have to be the Brandenburg.
So check out that last one that I posted. They're out in Wyoming, but they've got a lot of really good information on the Dexter breed.
Okay, hang on. We're gonna find cows today, people. This is what we do here on Brandenburg News Network. We find cows. Oh, I didn't share my screen with everybody. Sorry about that. Here we go. So I get so excited about cows. I didn't even put that.
I still think you would have such a fun time with Nigerian dwarf goats.
Oh, these are cute. So little Dexters.
Donna would have a playground built out in her little goat
Hey, they've got
enclosure.
their own herd. Wow, cool. Okay, so perfect. So I gotta look into these Dexters. I'm not looking for beef. I'm looking for milkers. I want milkers because I don't. Oh, trained family milk cows. Are you kidding me? This is awesome. So we've got trained milkers
And beef.
but we don't eat beef. So there you go. I have to get beef to Dr. David and you.
Well, I'm just saying that it's good. It's like any livestock animal. They live, and then at some point they die. And if you can harvest them for meat, when you
cow.
Then you make a more efficient use of them. But it's hard when they're pets. That's different.
Look how cute they are. Look how little this guy is. It's so cute. The size of a lab.
Like a miniature horse.
Yeah, how cool is that? We've got one mini horse. They're cool. Oh my gosh, they're so cute. And you can milk them. How cool is that? Here, you got all kinds of them that are already sold. Look at that face. How could you not just love that little cow? All right, so I got a cow resource here. You know what? We're gonna have to go on a road trip, guys. So there you go. Well, why don't we? We're getting close to 11. You guys ready? So I think we can. I'm not going to be on tomorrow and Friday because I'm going to be doing some potentially on location reporting. I'll see how much where I'm going is kind of a secure area. So that's what I can say. And then I'll see if I can report from where I am and how much I can report from where I am. But it should be a lot of fun. So,
yeah, I'm still taking a look to see if I can find that food allergy test that they did on me, because it was pretty complete.
Yeah, let me take a look at it.
very cool. Well, let's head out for our day. Anybody have any last words here? And then we'll say a prayer and move on.
No.
No.
I think
There's a lot of stuff, but
I'll have to see if I can find a copy of my test, because it's been a few years now since the last one, and I don't remember which test it was. I'm pretty sure it was not the standard like LabCorp one, because it was a lot. They tested a lot more things than that.
yeah, here's my last words: is not everything is an allergy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There's allergies, and there's sensitivities to foods, and then there's things that cause increase in your body's histamine, which would show up as an allergy, but you're not necessarily allergic to that particular food or topical thing. It's a complicated thing, but almost all of it can be dealt with once you can narrow it down what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Even things like chronic hives and angioedema can be dealt with now, where you just break out or have swelling of your tongue or eyelid, things like that. Big hives. People they weren't able to figure out, well, we still don't know exactly what causes it, but there are treatments now. It can be debilitating, some of that stuff.
All right. Well, thanks for being on here, guys. Let's say a prayer, and then we're going to get to our days. We can stay on the line. You don't have to leave when I turn the broadcast off. We usually sit here and talk for a little bit before we get off. So, but dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so very much for Bill and for David and for Ralph and for Karen and all the wonderful people out there that are watching the show today. And we ask that you would be with them, show them the path that you have laid out for them, so that they can move in the direction that you want them to go, and help them keep their eyes on you. You know, every battle that we face is your battle, and you're teaching us through things, both good times, bad times, things that go well, things that don't go quite so well. You're teaching us all new skills, and we're very thankful that you're challenging our comfort zone to help us to grow and stretch our wings a little bit and learn how to be walking on this earth the way you would, and be more like you. We love it that you're a great example. We're thankful for all the things that you provide for us, even micro cows. What a cool thing micro cows are, and the beautiful day that's ahead of us. We ask that you would bless anyone out there who's struggling with health issues or allergies, that you would provide the answers to them so that they can be fully healed and not have to deal with this anymore. It's kind of difficult for people to deal with the whole allergy situation and some of the food challenges that we're facing here. Help us to know how to get around the roadblocks that truly evil people have decided to put in the way. And we know that you have wonderful answers. Just help us to keep our eyes on you so that we can continue to find the nuggets that you leave for us. As far as our elections go, we're all concerned about the elections, and we ask that you would show us exactly what to do, how to address this, and in whatever manner that you see fit. We ask that you turn the hearts of this nation back to you, towards morality, integrity, and doing the right thing, treating other people the way that we want to be treated, and also treating this world the way that you want us to treat it, with a servant's heart, with a heart of doing the right thing, and always to honor you in the creation that you've so graciously shared with us, and the jobs you've given us here. You've so graciously shared with us. We're so grateful. Please help everyone to learn to talk with each other in a way that honors each other, calling out the bad stuff, but yet having a heart that is remembering that people are imperfect and truly need your help. We can't do anything right without your presence in our lives, and we just ask that you would continue to lead us in this direction. Thank you for this day. Thank you for the ability to have free speech, for changing the things that are wrong. We know that that's all possible, that everything is possible with you. And as long as we keep our eyes on you, our faith in you, our ability to continue to walk without giving up, all comes from you. And we're thankful for that. we love you. You're a great friend to us, and we want to be a great friend to you. And in the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. So there we go, guys. So I guess it's time. I got to go pick a horse up, and got to go feed some bees today as we're off of here. And I really should write some letters. So that's to our elected officials who have gone off the rails here, as well as something I wanted to ask everybody. I need to write some resolutions. I talked to you about it, David, yesterday, and I want to get a list of resolutions that people would like to see written that the Taxpayers Party can get behind, and calling out our officials. So if you got any ideas, y'all know where to find me, 616-430-4410. Give me a call or a text. I prefer text, actually. So if you can, because then I can pick them up, and if I'm in the middle of something, I can look at the text, I can respond to the text and such. So just communicate, because I'd like to work together with everyone to accomplish what God's put in each of our hearts. It's not about one person, it's all of us. So with that said, here's that part of the show, boys and girls. Go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who has ever not conceded in the history of the United States. And I'd like to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, about this. And with that said, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. Make good choices. It starts with each and every one of us, not all of us, not our elected officials. It starts with us. So we're going to make this a great day. And you might see me on tomorrow. It depends on if I can do some broadcast or some taping where I'm going. But if not, I'll see you Monday. Have a great weekend.